So welcome to today's session. We will be talking about the top 5 mistakes that firms do make in the hiring process. But before we get into that, I just want to tell you guys a little bit about WizeTalent. So what we do is we're sort of like recruiters, but we're more than that. We're very transparent with how we do things. So with WizeTalent, we have a 44-step hiring process. And our clients are a part of the entire process from start to finish. So there's nothing that we do that our clients don't see. So that makes us quite unique compared to other recruiters out there. So we're very proud about that. So yeah, like I said, today's topic is about top 5 most expensive hiring mistakes. And, we all know that hiring isn't easy. It's one of those things where it's not the easiest thing because it's not an exact science. That's always what Jamie says. He says that it's not an exact science. At the end of the day, we are working with humans, so there's always going to be trial and error. There's always going to be issues that arise. Yeah, it's not always easy, but we make it work, and that's why we have steps in place. So with today's session, we're going to try and give you as much information as possible so that you know what to avoid basically and how to hire the right way.
Yes, I resonate with some of these mistakes personally from, fortunately, a long time ago before I started getting the help of WizeTalent and understanding how to do things a much better way. But look, one of the most expensive mistakes you can make is hiring too quickly. You're just desperate, you're eager, you think, I really just need to put someone in. It's not that hard, they're trained, so they should be a good fit for my company. So you put them in and you spend some time onboarding them, you buy them equipment, do the training, you start introducing to the client work, maybe to clients, and then you realise they're not a good fit for you and you rushed in too fast. It's remembering that key rule of slow to hire, quick to fire. Whilst in the hiring process, you want to be responsive and get interviews booked quickly and keep things moving through the funnel quickly, you don't want to make the hiring decision too quickly because it can cost you so much more than an extra month or 2 waiting for the right person. And, even in my current recruitment process that I'm in, looking for a new team member, I could easily make a quick decision on someone who seems great in the interview, but I have to follow the process and due diligence of getting the reference checks, doing the skills test, allowing other candidates to come through too and comparing so that we can avoid the costly mistake of the wrong hire. It can disrupt your team members. Nothing worse than bringing the wrong personality into your business and losing a good, solid person you've had for a while because they just can't gel with that person. And sometimes we can have our blinders on and not see those traits that everyone else can see, and that causes great disruption. So yeah, that's definitely a big one. And misleading job descriptions, they're either too detailed, and who wants to read War and Peace in a job description, or they're not detailed enough and you get a whole heap of candidates applying who've got no chance, but the job description's not clear, or they're not qualified, but you haven't been specific enough. So really working hard on your job description, making sure it's clear, concise, but also different. That little bit of point of difference to other job ads, make yourself stand out, and, don't be boring. The number of times I've had candidates refer to the video link that's in my job description for our positions is amazing. It really does stand out from the rest. And you can create a video that you can use for all sorts of job ads. You don't have to create a new video every time. Just look at how you can be super clear with your job description, all the tasks that need to be done, identifying the kind of attributes you need in your new hire, not missing out the important things. If they must have experience with a software or industry, don't miss it out, but don't belabor the point too much and list every industry that your firm works with, because there are some commonalities. So yeah, keep it simple. Not doing reference checks. Oh, the torture that brings me, the thought of people not doing reference checks, the things that we've caught in the way that WizeTalent does their reference checks. It's not just an offshore problem with false reference checks. It does happen everywhere. I've had team members in Australia who seemed great resume, great interview. I was so excited to get their reference checks back. Turns out they were trying to give them themselves. And I could have made a really costly hiring decision if I hadn't have followed the process and used a really good system to make sure that you could validate and endorse the integrity of the references. So it's vital, even if it's a friend of a friend, still get those reference checks. You know, Dani, you would see it a lot, wouldn't you, with the number of candidates who firm owners say, I love them, like I do.
Yeah.
But those reference checks come back sometimes not as favourably.
It's very important, yeah, because you don't know, and a lot of them will use friends, even family, to try and be their own referee. So definitely do the references properly. So if you can, so we personally use XREF. So if you can use something like that, that can detect if there is integrity issues, because yeah, unfortunately we've caught out a lot of people that way.
Yeah. And then the next one, not testing their skills. Again, you know, we talk about what are we looking for, the key attributes in the role we're hiring for. So you could say when you're hiring a client manager, you're looking for the soft skills, the personality, the ability to shift gears and communicate effectively. They don't need to be the most technical person. We discussed that that's our production manager is the most technical to support client managers, but you still need to test the skills of the client manager. They still need to come back with some foundational knowledge of the work that they'll be doing and the work that they'll be reviewing. And again, in the past, I've had some great candidates come through who have, you know, a long history in the industry, have worked for some good firms, should be quite good. And their scores in the testing has come back incredibly low. And, you know, again, it's avoiding a costly mishiring process there if you don't understand their skills. And not everyone tests well, of course, I get that, but you know, do the tests yourself if you want to get an idea of what the candidates are going through. They're not high pressure situations, but you know, without knowing the skills of the person, you're going to have another mishire on your hands potentially. So that's one to avoid. And we've got some tests of our own in the Wize marketplace. Thomas and I have created some. I've got some for bookkeeping. Thomas has created for accounting, because we've seen, you know, candidates come through firms that we mentor that, you know, aren't quite cutting the mustard. So how can we help identify those people and also pick out the good performers by having some good tests? And there's account tests. Some people use disc testing. There's lots of skills test options out there. It's just really important you understand the test and the kind of things it's identifying, so it can help you guide yourself into the candidates. But also don't lower the bar because you're desperate. It goes back to that hiring too quickly. If they're under the benchmark of passing, they're under the benchmark. It's not a successful test. You know, don't try and force yourself into making the decision. And last but not least, not onboarding a candidate properly. This is one that can really catch you out by surprise. Either, you know, the team member doesn't feel as secure and supported as they thought they would early on, so they don't want to stay. It's a competitive market out there at the moment. People are getting multiple job offers, so they might find that when they've joined your firm, doesn't actually feel as good as they thought from another interview, so they want to go back to one of the other roles they applied for. You know, there's a few different ways of really dropping the ball on onboarding, overwhelming them, putting them under too much pressure early on, not training them properly, not showing them the support that your firm has. So, you know, I definitely encourage you to look at your onboarding process. I know that it's one that my firm has had to build out quite extensively. It's quite a lengthy process now that we have, but it's helped us have far better staff retention than we used to. We used to be a bit of a churn and burn. firm with some some positions. It wasn't great till we worked out, how to really make a team member feel welcome and cared for from the get-go. And also you want to have some good tests in place, with the practical application of the work that they're doing, so you can see that they have the potential to achieve the full role that you have for them without, sometimes there's only a type of work done once a year. So how are you going to identify that if it's just been done? So looking at the onboarding process to give the candidate the best chance to understand the expectations of the work and really see how it flows in your business. So just to recap on my 5 mistakes to avoid: hiring too quickly, misleading job descriptions, not conducting reference checks, not testing their skills, and not onboarding a candidate properly.
Yeah, thanks, Kristy. That's a lot of great information in there. And I do want to add one more in there as well. And this is a bit not controversial, but I know some firms are still not, on board with this. But having staff remote, like work remotely, there are still firms who are adamant that they need their staff to be in the office. And it's just nowadays, it's just not the case. I mean, if you look at us here at Wize, we don't have a physical office. We work all over and we have people all over the world. But I've hired senior client managers who work remotely for their teams, for their the firms that they've joined. It's just, you're basically opening up a whole other thing. So you're not just stuck to your location. You can basically hire great staff all over. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you are open to remote workers, it will be a lot easier to find great staff out there because you aren't just limited to your location.
Just on that point, Dani, sorry, I think it's a great point. There are still some bricks and mortar firms, so you do still need some people in the office. But it's worth considering, do you need everyone in the office? Or do you have your core team that can service the office? Or do you look at a flexible arrangement? Do you have someone who can commute within an hour, which is so foreign to a Tasmanian? Anything more than 15 minutes is a day trip. But, if you think of your local area, is an hour's commute acceptable for some people, or 45 minutes? So could you do a flexible hybrid model that they have a couple of days a week in the office or 4 days a fortnight in the office, and then you still get that client face time if needed, or whatever the need for having them in the office is, without limiting them to the full 5 days? Some people just find they're more in flow and productive when they work from home. Other people want that team office environment to be productive. So, I think it's definitely the time to be flexible in your thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kristy, what advice would you give to firms who are currently hiring at the moment or looking to hire very soon? What sort of advice would you give them?
I mean, firstly, speak to you. No, if you are looking to hire, it's being really clear on the position you're looking to fill. Have you done your capacity planner in your Wize hub? Are you able to easily identify the type of person? Is it a grinder? Are you looking for an intermediate or senior bookkeeper or accountant? Are you looking for a production manager? Or are you looking for a client-facing position in a client manager? Be really clear on what you're looking for and make sure that it fits into your budget and your capacity planner, that you've got the space for the person, and get the hiring process underway. It's the sooner you get the ad up and running, the sooner you can start filtering through the candidates. So that's sort of that's the extent of my advice. Just go.
Yeah.
Always, I think we identified in the beginning in the chat that we're always looking to hire, and I'm always much happier when I'm adding to my team, not replacing. But really, depending on what your goals are in your business, if you're scaling, if you're growing, then yes, you are always going to be looking to hire. So having a well-oiled process internally, that means as soon as you identify you will need a new team member in a month, 2 months' time, you can hit the lever today the better you will be at attracting the right candidates. Because, you know, again, the market is forever changing. You would see this a lot, Dani, that, you know, who was applying for jobs yesterday may not be applying for jobs tomorrow, or there might be more people tomorrow. We see it it fluctuates so much at the moment, the volume of candidates and quality of candidates from one job ad to the next. So yeah, being able to go quickly, but again, having a stringent hiring process in place, like the checklist that WizeTalent uses, to make sure that you follow the process, that you don't skip ahead, that you're grading the process along the way, so that you have an indication of, based on the reference checks, based on the interview, based on the skills test, how likely is this candidate to be a successful one for you. And don't lower the benchmark to make it work because you're desperate. Be super clear. As much as we say, act fast, get the ad out fast, interview quickly, don't make the final decision too quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And having a checklist is great for that. So we use like a candidate scorecard checklist. And that also, it takes the emotion out of things, because someone could interview really well, but then we do this checklist and we're like, well, they don't actually have the skills that we're looking for. So yeah, if you can create something like that, it's definitely handy.
And we're accountants and bookkeepers. We love a good checklist.
Yes, exactly. And so what can they do? So what can firms do to stay ahead of the game? Because, you know, everyone is hiring at the moment, so it's very competitive. So yeah, what kind of advice would you give there?
Continue to speak to your team and make sure they have their needs being met and identify what they are. I know for me, my senior production manager is in the Philippines, and she is a great help to me in identifying what things are like in the economy and environment for the team when we're looking to hire, what cost of living has shifted, what does she think is fair in entitlements and benefits and things for our candidates. Always be open to shifts and changes in the market. Look at the salary packaging that you have. Look at, you know, the way that you can provide enticements and incentives throughout the process with team members. You know, I think they're the main things for actually securing the hire when you make the job offer. But even in the recruiting and hiring process, I know some firms have created some really great join us pages on their website. You know, we think about sales landing pages for new clients. You also need to create it for new hires. You want to be the firm that they desire to work for. You know, a couple of years ago, we had a great senior bookkeeper candidate interview with me, and initially he turned me down. He got offered a job with more money, and he thought that's where he wanted to be, but he thought about it for a bit longer and came back and said, actually, I really love the way that your business operates, the values you talked about in your video. I'd like to work with you. And he's celebrated his 2-year anniversary with us a month or two ago. So, you know, it's not always about the dollars and the packages. It can be about how your firm represents itself. So look at the marketing you can do for yourself from a recruitment process. I don't think you should allow yourself to get stale by having a perpetual job ad running. You know, with the ad I've got currently, I've had some candidates say to me, oh, I've seen the job's been up for a little while, so maybe it's already gone. It's only been up for like 2.5, 3 weeks. It's not expired yet. So if you just have a long-standing ad because you know you're always adding, you will have candidates turned off by that, because they will assume that you would have found someone, or think, oh, what's wrong with you that you haven't found anyone in 6 months of advertising. So also consider the way that you are presenting yourself to the marketplace, and don't have the risk of being stale. Yeah, I'd say they're sort of my top points. Dani, anything that I've not covered that you've seen recently?
No, so yeah, that last bit was that's something that I was going to say about, yeah, we have had candidates who wonder about some firms because they are offering a lot of money, but they're just the way they present themselves, even their website, the look of their website is quite dated. And that's sort of like a turn off, because candidates are like, we want to know that they're working with like Xero or whatever it is. They want to know that there's processes and things that are going to make their job easier. Whereas if you've got like a dated website, some people just assume everything's going to be done manually, and it's going to make their job harder. So yeah, something to consider as well.
Yeah, and I think, often we can think, I don't have a physical office. My team are all remote. And, if I had an office space, I could have it look fantastic and flashy and fresh and modern. And as soon as a candidate would walk in for an interview, they would get that sense from my environment. But because it's remote, I have to present my brand in a different way. My online presence has to be representational of what I want candidates to see and clients. So yeah, I think it's important to think about the way that your website is presenting and the information on there, because the candidates do look you up. They do assess if your team look happy in their team photos. It's funny, some of the photos that get posted of people and they just look miserable in their role. So you want really fresh, happy team photos. You want to look like the kind of environment people want to work for, whether it's going to be an online remote role or an in-office role, still that online presence. If ever you're recommended to use a plumber or an electrician, you generally look them up online first, even though a friend's told you to contact them. So just as candidates will also look you up online before they apply or before they accept an interview. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I used to be terrified of offshoring all up. But then the thought of direct hire was terrifying. When I first started having a remote team, I had a colleague who had team members in the Philippines, and I engaged someone for 4 hours a week because I just wanted to dip my toe in to see what it was like to have someone outside of Australia doing the work, and I wasn't too sure how it was going to go. And now I've got, I think, 6 or 7 people in the Philippines. Absolutely love it. I love them. What they bring to my business is amazing. And they're people, that's all. They're just somewhere else. So there's no real big difference I've found in hiring someone in Melbourne, for me as a Tassie girl, to hiring someone in the Philippines. The more involvement you can have in the hiring process and in the engagement process, the better. So utilising a service like WizeTalent, and this is not a sales pitch at all, this is just, my experience. But what I was able to learn in my first hiring with WizeTalent has helped me continue to hire offshore with the processes that they've created. So really is something to consider for your first direct hire with an offshore team member. Use something like WizeTalent, where you get checklist processes, hiring guides that you can use on repeat for every new hire, whether it's on or offshore, so that you can have that direct contact and avoid some of those mistakes that you get from outsourcing firms. And it also, in the long run, costs you a lot less. When you can hire direct versus paying a BPO or outsourcing business, then the employee is better off and you're better off overall. Some of the outsourcing firms don't give the full salary increase to the team member, and oftentimes what gets deducted from their pay is significant. So what they're actually taking home is quite a bit less than what you're paying them. So yeah, there's a few things to consider in the quality of candidate that you can get from a BPO, because the satisfaction levels tend to be lower than having a direct hire.
And they do, I do know that some BPOs, I guess, like recycle candidates. So if a firm isn't happy with someone and they decide to let them go, the BPO don't actually let the candidate go. They bench them until another firm comes along, and then they just give that candidate to the next firm, which it's like a cycle basically.
Yeah.
It's not great. And yeah, I've just seen about a targeted interview question. So yeah, that's something that with WizeTalent, what we do is it's like an 8-page interview guide. So it is quite detailed. It generally goes for about an hour, but it's a great way for us to see, we've got all these questions, and yeah, it's a great way for us to see if this person actually has the skills or not, because we cover things on their second most recent job and their most recent job as well. If you do think of anything else, you can definitely email me. My email is just below there. But yeah, if you need any help with the hiring process, you can book a one-on-one call with me, and I'd be happy to show you our entire hiring process from start to finish. But that's pretty much it for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Dani.